Canada's new electoral map has 338 pieces. Those ridings stretch across 10 million square kilometers and 6 time zones. No leader can visit the whole country during a campaign, even one that stretches across 11 weeks. The parties are focused on those key battlegrounds that can make the difference between government and opposition, or between a majority and minority.
It's great to be here with our terrific...
Large urban areas have been obvious targets, especially those not dominated by any single party.
For all three parties, if any of them want to become government, they have to do well in, obviously, regions where most people live. And so that's the Greater Toronto Area, the Lower Mainland, and some of the larger urban centres.
Canada's major cities are even more important in 2015. That's because the House of Commons has 30 new seats to fill, largely from the Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver areas, where 40% of Canadians live. Canada's federal boundaries are adjusted every decade based on the census. This time, the House of Commons expanded to 338 seats, a 10% increase. Nearly 90% of seats are new or have altered boundaries. Ontario gained 15 seats, with 6 for Alberta, 6 for British Columbia, and 3 in Quebec. If you want to know where parties think this election will be decided, watch where the 3 main leaders atop the polls have been visiting. All 3 parties have zeroed in on Ontario, British Columbia, and Quebec. Those 3 provinces account for 70% of all ridings and many fierce races.
Really, it was the GTA that gave the Conservatives the majority last time. It's going to be those GTA and the few Toronto seats that are going to be critically important for the Conservatives to defend. And similarly, BC, the Conservatives won a lot of seats last time, and the NDP is really making a push for those seats this time.
Ontario's new seats are mainly in the 905 area code surrounding the city of Toronto, a belt Conservatives virtually swept in 2011. Rapidly growing cities such as Mississauga, Brampton, and Markham will have more MPs to elect, along with Ajax, Milton, and other bedroom communities. Downtown Toronto also gains a seat. The Conservatives need to keep their hold on rural and suburban Ontario if they want another majority. But the Liberals and NDP want to muscle in on vote-rich southern Ontario, especially areas continuing to struggle with lost manufacturing jobs. In Quebec, where the NDP continues to dominate polls, the 3 additional seats go to the suburbs of Montreal.
And the NDP might look a little more favorable if Quebecers now find themselves with a party which is actually forming government or a significant part of government.
Other questions remain in Quebec, though. Are the Liberals able to win outside the island of Montreal, especially among Francophone Quebecers? Can the Conservatives increase their seat count in the Quebec City and Beauce regions? And will Gilles Ducep's return to the Bloc Québécois do anything to revive the party in its traditional heartland? To the west, British Columbia's 6 new seats are mostly in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, where all 3 parties hold seats and polls show a close race. Will those last results from the West Coast be the deciding factor on election night?
The Green Party are in play in BC as well, and it'll be interesting to see, because they are competing directly with the NDP in BC, whether the Green Party can actually pick up their game and deliver, say 5 or 6 seats in British Columbia.
As we enter the autumn, 2 other provinces could continue seeing more attention from leaders compared to recent campaigns. Alberta's electoral map has major changes, including 2 new seats for both Edmonton and Calgary.
We can and must do better for Alberta and for Canada.
Justin Trudeau, hoping to end the Liberals' decade-long losing streak in Alberta, has made several visits to Calgary. New Democrats hope the extra urban ridings, combined with Rachel Notley's win as premier earlier this year, to create tighter races with Conservatives, especially in the provincial capital.
Edmonton's going to probably play a role, if it does, in electing an NDP government, for example, because a number of ridings in that city went New Democrat like it did provincially.
Big change has also come to Saskatchewan. where Conservatives were unsuccessful at lobbying the Electoral Boundaries Commission to maintain mixed urban-rural ridings, where they have dominated. The province now has 5 urban-only ridings in Regina and Saskatoon, leaving the NDP and Liberals hoping to benefit from the new map. Of course, it takes living, breathing candidates to run in these ridings. That's another element of the campaign map for the parties to consider. Between newly created seats, retirements, and MPs losing their nomination vote, more than 25% of all ridings have no incumbent name on the ballot. That's the highest turnover rate since 1993. The list of outgoing MPs touches on all parts of Canada and each of the 3 major parties. But the Conservatives have lost the most MPs, including big-name ministers across the country. Peter MacKay in Nova Scotia, Christian Parody in Quebec, John Baird in Ontario, Shelley Glover in Manitoba, and James Moore in BC.
I think the fundamental ballot questions won't be the quality of the team or the candidates. I think that'll be important, but I don't think it'll be the fundamental issues. So I don't think this is a insurmountable problem for Mr. Harper.
Harper and his rivals have already offered a sneak preview of where the parties feel strong and where they feel the competition will be hottest.
I think it is instructive to look where the leaders go early in the campaign, and in this fixed election date campaign, where the leaders have been leading up to the writ drop.
Stephen Harper has been prominent in Toronto, Ottawa, Vancouver, Quebec City and surrounding areas, and those newly drawn Saskatchewan ridings.
Hello, Vancouver!
Thomas Mulcair's travel has also centered on the Vancouver and Toronto theatres, along with southwestern Ontario and Quebec. And for Justin Trudeau, Montreal, Winnipeg, Calgary, British Columbia, New Brunswick, and southern Ontario, where the Liberals held only 1 seat outside the Greater Toronto Area during the last Parliament. So, if you want to know how the campaign is going for each party, where they're strong or where they need to improve, just follow the leaders.